Unvetted Syrian pseudo-refugees admit in private conversations that they are not fleeing the civil war in their home country. And I call them pseudo-refugees because these folks are not real refugees. They are here for a specific purpose, and I'll go into great detail of what that purpose is. They're not crossing the ocean to come to America because they face persecution. The pseudo-refugees are coming here to wage war. The refugees have a specific plan that is being preached to them in every mosque. Destroy America from within by outbreeding the non-believers. I know this really sounds animalistic, but that's what we're looking at. I'll be talking about that today, and we'll let you know exactly why I'm calling on Congress to defund the United Nations Refugee Resettlement Program completely. The Republican Congress has agreed to our demands to pass a short-term stopgap budget that will only fund the government through March. As we, the people, demanded, Congress will work with Trump to set up funding priorities instead of allowing Obama one final spending spree. You can watch my earlier videos on this channel to see how we executed that strategy and did so successfully. Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of this problem. What goes in the budget and what gets left out? Congress needs to cut all the funding for the UN Refugee Resettlement Program now, because this program is an existential threat to the United States of America. And today, I'll tell you how you can get involved in this fight. Did you realize that America gets no input on the types of refugees we bring in? We can't say anything. The clique of Muslim nations that make these decisions are beyond America's control. So that's why America gets only unvetted Muslim fighting age warriors and less than 0.1% Christians. That's how the refugee program was designed and written by the Democrats under Jimmy Carter. You know, that peanut farmer president who gave away the Panama Canal, the canal that's now in the hands of the Chinese communists. Well, that was another great Democrat victory, just like all these swarming, unvetted, warrior-aged refugees are coming into America to destroy us. The United Nations runs the refugee program completely. It picks which refugees are to be quote-unquote resettled and what countries they go to. The taxpayers pay for it here in the United States, and the president sends the UN a number that they're going to accept. And then he sends them a great big fat check. But you know, that check to bring them in, to pay for their airfare and their resettlement costs, is only the tip of the iceberg. When they come in here to the United States, they are guaranteed lifelong welfare. They're making more on welfare than our senior citizens who, after working a lifetime and contributing to Social Security. And you know what? That by itself is a criminal result. And since the UN is now dominated by a 57-nation bloc of Muslim countries, known as the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, or OIC, virtually all the refugees sent to America are unvetted Muslims. And we now have proof that this program is not about being charitable to the world's downtrodden. The refugee program is specifically bringing in young, adult Muslim males who intend to destroy America from within. This is why we're calling on Congress to cut all funding for the Refugee Resettlement Program. Stay tuned. I have a lot more information for you today.
It's time for another blistering report from the front lines of the cultural war for a constitutional America. And now, here's your host, Charles Benninghoff.
Breitbart News has reported today on a Christian woman who works as a translator at a refugee resettlement center, and she does so across Germany. The woman is from Eritrea in Africa, and because of her appearance, the Syrian pseudo-refugees were willing to have very candid and open conversations in front of her, which she recorded. The translator was so shocked by the things the Muslims say in private that she's now blowing the whistle on them. Ha ha, woo-woo! That's the whistle we want to hear. Bring truth and justice to the American way. And as you listen to these quotes, keep in mind that America is taking in the same pseudo-refugees that Germany and other European nations are taking in. First, the Muslims told the translator that they absolutely hate Western nations and want to convert all of us to Islam. And I quote, "They despise our nations and our values," close quote. Sounds like the refugees are in total agreement with the UN, since it also hates American values. The translator goes on to say that pure hatred against non-Muslims is preached in every mosque, and the refugee children are indoctrinated in that belief system from an early age. The Muslim children tell the translator that they hate Christian children just like their parents hate adult Christians. And finally, when the translator tries to talk to the pseudo-refugees about modern contraception methods, they tell her, and I quote, "No, we will multiply our numbers. We must have more children than the Christians because that's how we will destroy them here." All the European nations that are bringing in these pseudo-refugees are having the same or worse social problems. A year ago, Sweden had to open a rape crisis center for men and boys after the massive flood of unvetted Muslim males were left into the country. That's for the men and boys. The men and boys were getting raped by the Muslims. You know, when they can't get a goat, they'll go after a guy. And in Stockholm, at the New Year's Eve celebration last year, more than 1,000 women and children were sexually assaulted outside a Christian cathedral by a mob of Muslim, and I quote, refugees. In Switzerland, cities are now considering measures to ban Quran distribution on the streets because Islamic street preachers are handing out strict fundamentalist versions of the Quran, which is the only one approved by the Islamic State, otherwise known as ISIL or ISIS or IS or Daesh. All the same names heard around the world. But you know what? They only mean one organization, and that's the terrorist Muslim organization. The pseudo-refugees are coming to wage war on us here in the United States. This is a demographic makeover of the United States that is even more sinister than the illegal alien lobby, also brought to us, to America, by Democrats here in California especially, and also in Nevada, the Northwest, and New York. With the illegal alien lobby, the Democrats are trying to outnumber conservatives so they can win elections. You know, the Democrats are the minority party. But you know what? They're trying to bring in tens of thousands, if not millions, of aliens in order to outbreed us and outvote us. And they're not going to succeed because we've got to stop them. But with the UN Refugee Resettlement Program, the globalists led by George Soros are trying to fundamentally transform America into a Muslim country. Remember, Soros is a Jew. He was forced to live with a Christian family during the Second World War, and his work at that time was stealing property from other Jews who had been sent to the concentration camps by the Nazis. So the hatred that Soros has for Christians is displaced hatred, and it's displaced hatred that he learned while a child working for the Nazis. Why are we bringing any of these people in? You've got to ask yourself, whatever happened to vetting people before we allow them in? That was written right into the law. That's not been changed. And yet right now these Democrats are claiming that we have to bring them in without vetting them because for some reason doing so makes us a racist. These pseudo-refugees want to harm you and me. They want to overthrow the Constitution and replace it with a Muslim caliphate, which is a global one-world government ruled by Islamic clerics. They admit in private conversations that they plan to destroy America by outbreeding all the non-believers. We shouldn't be letting any of them in. But because the Refugee Resettlement Program is one of those massive federal programs that gets renewed every year with no questions asked, we're being swamped with unvetted pseudo-refugees who hate us. This has to stop. It's an act of national suicide to continue down this path, and the time to stop it is right now. Following the election of Donald Trump, we have the momentum on our side, and we need to take bold steps right now. We have to demand that funding for the United Nations Refugee Program be completely gutted from the budget. You can help this happen. Go to our action page today and start sending personalized letters to Congress. Demand that the UN Refugee Resettlement Program be abolished. Stay tuned because Bob Mallory has instructions for you on the next page if you need to know how to get to our action page. This is Charles Benninghoff signing off and wishing you freedom, fulfillment, and God's many blessings.
Tell Congress to cut funding to the UN Refugee Resettlement Program today. If you're watching this on our action page on our website, use the form next to the video screen to select a program. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, click the icon appearing now to find the link to our action page, or check the video's description to find the link. Speak out today.